My name is Marcus Washington, and on November 15th, 2023, I lost 3 jobs in one night and gained everything I'd ever dreamed of. But before I tell you how that happened, you need to understand what it means to be invisible. I'm 28 years old. I've been invisible for most of my life. Not invisible like a ghost, but invisible like a black man in a white uniform, serving water to people who will never remember your face. I worked 3 jobs. McDonald's from 6 to 11 in the morning, cooking breakfast for people rushing to offices I'll never see inside. Walmart from noon to 6, stocking shelves with products I can't afford to buy. And evenings at the Drake Hotel in downtown Chicago, carrying plates at corporate dinners for people who look right through me. Tonight I'm standing in the presidential suite, pouring wine for millionaires, and I'm about to do something that will cost me everything. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. My name is Marcus Washington, and I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest of this story. I need you to understand what it means to be invisible. Not invisible like a ghost or a superhero. Invisible like a black man in a white uniform, serving water to people who will never remember your face. I'm 28 years old. I've been invisible for most of my life. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than birdsong. My father, James Washington, worked at the post office for 30 years. He wore the same blue uniform every day, came home exhausted every night, and never complained once. My mother died giving birth to my little sister Keisha when I was 11 years old. After that, it was just the 3 of us, Dad, me, and a tiny baby girl who looked exactly like the mother we'd lost. Dad raised us alone. He taught me how to tie a tie, how to change a tire, how to look a man in the eye when you shake his hand. But more than that, he taught me how to see people, really see them. Not their color, not their clothes, not their bank account, their humanity. "Marcus," he'd say, sitting at our scratched kitchen table after his shift, still in that blue uniform, "your worth isn't defined by how people see you. It's defined by how you see others when they think no one is watching." I was 19 years old when Dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 3. The doctor sat us down in a room that smelled like bleach and fear, and he said the words that would change everything. "With surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, your father could have 5 more years. Without treatment, he has 3 weeks. The total cost will be $85,000. We had health insurance, the cheapest plan we could afford. It covered $12,000. We needed $73,000 more. I dropped out of community college the next day. I'd been studying criminal justice, dreaming of becoming a lawyer, helping people who couldn't help themselves. But dreams are luxuries. Dad was dying, and Keisha was only 10 years old. I got 3 jobs, McDonald's from 6 to 11 in the morning, cooking breakfast for people rushing to offices I'd never see inside, Walmart from noon to 6, stocking shelves with products I couldn't afford to buy, and catering jobs at night whenever I could get them, carrying plates at weddings and corporate events for people who looked right through me. In 3 months, I saved $11,000. I counted every penny. I skipped meals. I walked instead of taking the bus. I did everything I could. It wasn't enough. Dad died holding my hand in a hospital bed we couldn't pay for, surrounded by machines that beeped out the rhythm of his fading heartbeat. He was 52 years old. He should have lived to see Keisha graduate high school. He should have walked her down the aisle someday, but he died because we were poor. 9 years after my father's death, I was still working 3 jobs. The McDonald's breakfast shift, the Walmart afternoon shift, and the evening catering work had become my life. I'd raised Keisha from a 10-year-old girl to a 17-year-old young woman who somehow, despite everything, had become the top student in her senior class. She wanted to be a doctor. Of course she did. She wanted to save the people I couldn't save. the people we couldn't save. On November 15th, 2023, I walked into the Drake Hotel for my evening shift with $47 in tips from my other two jobs jingling in my pocket. My feet hurt, my back hurt, everything hurt. But I was there, and I was on time, and I was wearing my uniform, black vest, white shirt that I'd ironed myself, black pants that were getting thin at the knees. Elena Rodriguez, the hotel manager, pulled me aside before service started. Elena was a good woman, mid-40s, Mexican-American, with kind eyes that had seen their share of struggle. She'd given me this job 2 years ago when most places wouldn't even let me fill out an application once they saw my address. "Marcus," she said, her voice low and serious, "we have VIP clients tonight. Very important business dinner in the presidential suite private dining room. I need you to be extra careful. Stay invisible. Don't make eye contact unless spoken to. Just serve and disappear. Understand?" I nodded. I'd heard this speech before. Stay invisible. It was the story of my life. "These people are worth more money than you and I will see in our entire lives combined," Elena continued. "They're finalizing some kind of major business deal, international, high stakes, corporate called 3 times today to make sure everything is perfect." "I understand," I said. "I'll be invisible." Elena squeezed my shoulder. "I know you will. You're one of my best." The presidential suite dining room was exactly what you'd expect. Crystal chandeliers, white linen tablecloths, silverware that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and wine bottles with French names I couldn't pronounce. The table was set for 8 people. I spent 20 minutes making sure every glass was spotless, every fork perfectly aligned. At 7:30, the guests began arriving. First came the American businessmen, loud and confident, wearing suits that cost thousands of dollars. They laughed too loudly, slapped each other on the back, ordered scotch before they'd even sat down. I poured their drinks and melted into the background. Then he walked in. The Japanese man. I noticed him immediately because he was different from everyone else in the room. He was small in stature, maybe 5'6", wearing a simple black suit that looked expensive but not showy. His hair was silver, neatly combed. He moved slowly, deliberately, with a quiet dignity that reminded me so much of my grandfather that I felt my breath catch. My grandfather had died 4 years ago, right before the pandemic. He'd been a veteran, stationed in Okinawa, Japan, after World War II. He'd come home with stories about the Japanese people, their culture, their language. He'd shown me his old photos, taught me a few phrases. When he died, I'd found his old Japanese language books in a box in his closet. I'd started teaching myself, 10 years now. Every night after my shifts from 11 p.m. to 1 in the morning, I'd sit at our kitchen table with those worn books and free online resources, learning a language I'd never had the chance to use professionally. The Japanese man bowed slightly as he entered the room. None of the American businessmen bowed back. They shook his hand too firmly, the way Americans do when they want to establish dominance. "Mr. Tanaka," the loudest one boomed. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with silver hair and the kind of face that was used to getting what it wanted. "Welcome! Welcome! Please sit! Can we get you a drink?" I stepped forward. "Sir, what would you like to drink?" The Japanese man, Mr. Tanaka, looked up at me, really looked at me. His eyes were kind, deeply lined at the corners. "Water, please. Thank you." He'd thanked me. In a room full of people who hadn't said a single polite word to me all evening, this man had thanked me for pouring water. "You're welcome, sir," I said, and meant it. The loud American, I'd later learn his name was Robert Sterling, settled into the head of the table like a king claiming his throne. Next to him sat a younger man, maybe mid-40s, with sharp eyes and a cruel mouth, Jackson Moore, Sterling's vice president. As I moved around the room, pouring wine, serving appetizers, clearing plates, I began to piece together what was happening. Mr. Tanaka was a CEO from Japan. His company, Tanaka Medical Technologies, manufactured medical equipment, prosthetics, wheelchairs, mobility devices. Sterling's company, Sterling Biomedical, was one of the largest medical equipment manufacturers in America. This dinner was supposed to finalize a partnership between them, but something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. It was in the way Sterling looked at Mr. Tanaka, not as a partner, but as prey. It was in the way Jackson Moore kept glancing at the briefcase on the side table as if it contained something valuable he couldn't wait to possess. And then there was the translator, a Korean-American man in his late 30s, sitting nervously next to Mr. Tanaka, sweating despite the air conditioning. His name tag read David Kim. He was supposed to be translating the conversation, but I noticed something odd. When Mr. Tanaka spoke in Japanese, Kim's English translation seemed too short, too simplified. When Sterling spoke, Kim's Japanese translation seemed overly complicated, filled with business jargon that made Mr. Tanaka pause and nod uncertainly. As the dinner progressed, Sterling's tone became increasingly patronizing. "You know, Hiroshi, can I call you Hiroshi? In America, we don't waste time with formalities. We get straight to business." Kim translated. Mr. Tanaka nodded politely. "The thing is," Sterling continued, cutting into his steak with theatrical precision, "you're a brilliant inventor, really brilliant, but you're a terrible businessman. You want to give away your technology, make it affordable for poor people. That's charity, not capitalism." I was refilling wine glasses, but my hands had started to shake. I recognized that tone. I'd heard it my entire life. The tone white people used when they thought they were smarter than everyone else in the room. Mr. Tanaka responded in Japanese. Kim translated, "Mr. Tanaka believes that medical technology should serve those who need it most, not only those who can afford it." Sterling laughed. "That's adorable. But that's exactly why you need us. We'll handle the business side. We'll make sure your wonderful technology actually makes money. You just keep inventing. Leave the rest to people who understand how the world really works." Moore added, "In America, Mr. Tanaka, we believe in the free market. The best products cost the most because they're worth the most. If you make things too cheap, people won't value them." I watched Mr. Tanaka's face. He remained composed, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not confusion, not agreement, something else. Pain, maybe, or disappointment. The other investors at the table remained largely silent, nodding along with Sterling's pronouncements like bobbleheads. They were complicit in whatever was happening, even if they didn't fully understand it yet. I cleared the dinner plates and brought out dessert. Crème brûlée, $100 a plate. As I set down Sterling's dessert, I heard him say, "Let's cut to the chase. We can finalize everything tonight." He pulled a thick contract from his briefcase and slid it across the table toward Mr. Tanaka. "Simple partnership agreement, standard terms, your technology, our distribution network, 50-50 split." Kim reached for the contract, but Sterling smoothly moved it just out of his reach. "Actually, this is pretty straightforward. No need for extensive translation, just basic business language." That's when alarm bells started ringing in my head. I'd worked enough high-stakes events to know that when someone says this is straightforward, it usually means the opposite. I moved to the side table to arrange the coffee service, but I was close enough to glimpse the contract. It was dense, full of legal language, but one section heading caught my eye. Transfer of intellectual property rights. My heart started pounding. I couldn't read all of it from where I stood, but I could see enough. This wasn't a partnership agreement. This was something else. I knew I should stay invisible. I knew I should pour the coffee, collect my tips, and go home. I had Keisha to think about. I had rent due in 3 days. I had bills stacked on my kitchen table. But I also had my father's voice in my head. Your worth isn't defined by how people see you, but by how you see others when they think no one is watching. Nobody was watching me. I was invisible, but I was watching them. And what I saw was wrong. I was arranging coffee cups on the side table when Sterling stood up and stretched, glancing at his watch. "Gentlemen, let's take a 5-minute break before we sign. I need to make a quick call." He nodded to Jackson Moore, and the two of them stepped out into the hallway just beyond the dining room. The door didn't close completely. It swung back slightly, leaving a gap of perhaps 3 inches. I could see them through the crack, and more importantly, I could hear them. They thought they were alone. They thought the help didn't matter. They thought I was invisible. "Is everything in place?" Sterling asked, his voice low but urgent. Moore pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. "Contract is ready. Section 12, page 47. The clause transferring all existing and future patent rights to Sterling Biomedical is buried in the middle of the licensing language. Kim will mistranslate it as a standard shared licensing agreement. What if Tanaka's lawyers in Japan review it later? By then, we'll have already filed the patents under our name in the U.S. International patent law moves slowly. We'll own the technology before he even realizes what happened. And even if he fights it, litigation could take years. We'll have already reverse-engineered everything and released our own versions." Sterling was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice cracked slightly. "His technology could have saved Christopher." "I know, Robert. I know. My son was 19 years old, paralyzed. We couldn't afford the experimental treatment. $500,000. I was a millionaire, Jackson. A millionaire, but not that kind of millionaire. And my boy died because of it. He gave up. The depression, the pills, Sterling's voice broke completely. And now this Japanese man wants to give away the same kind of technology for free. While my Christopher is dead? Robert, you need to stay focused. This isn't about, it's about justice, Sterling snapped. If I can't have my son back, then I'll control who else gets to live. I'll decide who deserves this technology and who doesn't. Just like fate decided my son didn't deserve to live. Moore said nothing. The silence stretched between them, heavy and dark. "Come on," Sterling finally said. "Let's go finish this." They walked back into the dining room, and I quickly moved back to my position by the coffee service, my heart hammering so hard I thought everyone could hear it. My hands were shaking as I poured coffee into delicate china cups. Everything Moore had said kept echoing in my head. Section 12, page 47. Transfer of patent rights. Kim will mistranslate. This wasn't a partnership. This was theft. Calculated, deliberate theft disguised as a business deal. And it was motivated by something even darker than greed. It was motivated by grief, twisted into revenge. I understood Sterling's pain. God knows I understood it. I'd lost my father the same way. I knew what it felt like to watch someone you loved die because you couldn't afford to save them. I knew that rage, that helplessness, that crushing guilt that never goes away. But I also knew that pain didn't give you the right to hurt others. And that's exactly what Sterling was doing. He was going to steal technology that could help thousands of families like mine. And then he was going to lock it away, make it expensive, make it exclusive. He was going to let other people's fathers die, other people's sons suffer, because his own son had suffered. I thought about my father's last night, the machines beeping, his hand in mine so thin and weak, his voice barely a whisper. Take care of Keisha and Marcus. Don't let anger make you small. Be bigger than the hate. I'd made him a promise that night. I'd promised to take care of Keisha. I'd kept that promise. For 9 years, I'd worked myself to exhaustion to keep that promise. But I'd also promised something else, even if I'd never said it out loud. I'd promised that other families wouldn't have to go through what we went through, that other sons wouldn't have to watch their fathers die for no reason except poverty. Sterling returned to his seat and tapped his knife against his wine glass. "Gentlemen, let's make history." He pulled out an expensive pen from his jacket, probably cost more than I made in a month, and set it on top of the contract. "Hiroshi, my friend, this is very simple. Standard partnership terms. Kim will walk you through it, but really it's just formalizing what we've already discussed. Your technology, our distribution, 50-50 profit split." Kim reached for the contract, but I noticed his hands were trembling. He knew he was about to lie to Mr. Tanaka. He knew he was about to betray him. And he was going to do it anyway. Probably for money, maybe for fear, possibly for both. Mr. Tanaka looked at the contract, then at Sterling, then at Kim. He said something in Japanese. His voice was soft, measured, but I could hear the question in it. Kim translated. "Mr. Tanaka would like to review the contract carefully before signing." Of course, Sterling said smoothly. "Take your time. Though I should mention, we have other interested parties. This offer won't be on the table indefinitely." It was a threat disguised as courtesy. Sign now or lose the opportunity. Mr. Tanaka reached for the contract. His hand was steady, dignified. He was about to sign away everything he'd built, everything he'd created to help people like my father, and he had no idea. I stood there with the coffee pot in my hand, watching this unfold. My mind was racing through calculations I'd made 1,000 times before. If I spoke up, Elena would fire me immediately. The Drake Hotel had a zero-tolerance policy for staff interfering with guests. I'd lose this job. And once word got out, and it would get out because Sterling had connections everywhere, I'd probably lose my other jobs too. McDonald's and Walmart wouldn't want an employee with a reputation for causing trouble. That meant no income, no way to pay rent, no way to buy food, no way to cover Keisha's school supplies, her senior photos, her college application fees. She was so close to graduating, so close to getting into a good university with the scholarship she'd earned. If I lost my jobs, she might have to drop out, might have to get a job herself, might never become the doctor she was meant to be. I'd be breaking the promise I made to my father, the most important promise, take care of Keisha. But I'd also be breaking another promise, the unspoken one. The one about making sure other families didn't suffer like we had. I looked at Mr. Tanaka, really looked at him. He reminded me so much of my grandfather, that same quiet dignity, that same belief that people were fundamentally good, that same trust in the world. My grandfather had fought in a war, had seen terrible things, and had still come home believing in humanity. And now I was watching that same kind of goodness about to be exploited. I thought about my father, about his last words. Your worth isn't defined by how people see you, but by how you see others when they think no one is watching. Nobody was watching me. I was the invisible black waiter, the help, the background. Nobody cared what I thought or what I knew or what I did, as long as I poured their coffee and disappeared when they were done with me. But I was watching them. I saw what they were doing. I understood what was at stake. And I had knowledge they didn't know I had. I spoke Japanese. Fluently. 10 years of late-night study, of dedication to a language I'd learned to honor my grandfather's memory, of discipline and persistence when I could have been sleeping or relaxing or doing anything else. I'd taught myself Japanese because I'd wanted to connect with something my grandfather loved. I'd never imagined I'd use it professionally. I'd certainly never imagined I'd use it to stop a theft. Mr. Tanaka picked up Sterling's expensive pen. He held it carefully, respectfully, the way he seemed to treat everything. He was about to sign. I set down the coffee pot. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. Elena was standing near the door. I caught her eye. She must have seen something in my face because her eyes widened and she shook her head slowly. No, don't. Whatever you're thinking, don't. But I couldn't help it. I couldn't stay silent. Not this time. Not when staying silent meant watching someone be robbed. Not when staying silent meant letting Sterling lock away technology that could save lives, technology that could have saved my father. I stepped forward. My legs felt weak, but I kept moving. I walked around the table until I was standing next to Mr. Tanaka. Everyone looked at me. 8 pairs of eyes. Confused. Annoyed. Why was the waiter interrupting? I took a breath. This was it. The moment my life would change one way or another. And then I spoke. Not in English, in Japanese. Tien-song-yang, moshiwake gozaimasen. 彼らはあなたを騙そうとしています。Tanaka-sama, I apologize. They are trying to deceive you. The words came out steady and clear in the formal Japanese my grandfather's books had taught me, in the respectful tone that Japanese business culture demanded. I bowed slightly as I spoke, the way I'd practiced alone in my apartment, never imagining I'd actually use it. The room fell into absolute silence. Not the comfortable silence of people thinking, but the shocked silence of a bomb going off. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Sterling's face went from pale to red to almost purple. What the hell did you just say? I ignored him. I kept my eyes on Mr. Tanaka, whose expression had shifted from polite confusion to sharp attention. His eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made me realize he understood more English than he'd been letting on. Kono ki yakushu no dai 12 chao 47 PZ ni wa anata no tokyoken wo karera ni joudo suru joshou ga arimasu. Honyakusha wa uso o tsuite imasu. Section 12, page 47 of this contract contains clauses that transfer your patent rights to them. The translator is lying. Kim, the translator, went white. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. I don't know what he's saying. He's just a waiter. He doesn't... But Mr. Tanaka had already pushed back his chair and stood up. He looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. Surprise, yes, but also something like relief, like he'd been drowning and I'd just thrown him a rope. Doko desu nani wanpi na nihonyu wo wananda no desu ka? Where did you learn such perfect Japanese? Tushukuan de Jennen kan do akushimashita. Shinozufu wa Okinawa ni shuryu shite imashita. I taught myself for 10 years at the library. My grandfather was stationed in Okinawa. I paused, and then I said the thing that I knew would matter most to him. Soshite shi no fuha. Anata no gijutsu ga sukueta kamoshiranai deshita. And my father was someone your technology might have saved? Mr. Tanaka's eyes filled with tears. He bowed to me, deeply. A full, formal bow that made every other person in the room understand something significant was happening, even if they couldn't understand the language. Arigatou gozaimasu. Anata wa yuki aru shita desu. Thank you. You are a person of courage. Sterling exploded. He slammed his palm on the table so hard the wine glasses jumped. This is outrageous. You have no right to interfere in a private business meeting. You're a waiter. You don't understand what's happening here. I turned to face him, my heart pounding but my voice steady. I understand perfectly, Mr. Sterling. Section 12, page 47, Clause 3. All existing and future patents developed by Tanaka Medical Technologies shall be transferred to Sterling Biomedical upon signing, with original patent holder receiving advisory title only. Jackson Moore stood up so fast his chair fell backward. How did you... I saw the contract when you left it on the side table, I said, and I read Japanese fluently. including legal Japanese. Elena had appeared at my elbow, her face a mixture of horror and desperation. Marcus, you need to leave. Right now. I'm so sorry, but... Wait. Mr. Tanaka's voice cut through the chaos. He spoke in English now, slower and more accented than his Japanese, but perfectly clear. Let him speak. He turned to Kim, his translator, and the temperature in his voice dropped 20 degrees. Anata haikura skaimashita ka? How much did they pay you? Kim's face crumpled. I have debts. Student loans. My daughter's medical bills. They offered $50,000. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Anataha mingyu wo jinde mata. You sold honor for money. Mr. Tanaka's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute judgment. Si no bunhwa de wa kore ni daisuru kokonchiroba ga arimasu. Anata no bunka demo. In my culture, there is a word for this. In your culture, too. He turned to Sterling, and when he spoke in English, every word was deliberate. Mr. Sterling, you try to steal from me. You think because I am Japanese, because my English is not perfect, because I am polite, you think I am stupid. Now wait just a minute, Sterling started. No, you wait. Mr. Tanaka's voice was still quiet, but it commanded the room in a way Sterling's shouting never could. This young man, he gestured to me, he risked everything to tell me truth. He is waiter. He is nobody to you. But he has more honor than everyone at this table. One of the other investors, an older white man with silver hair, cleared his throat uncomfortably. Robert, is this true? Were you planning to take Hiroshi's patents? Sterling's face twisted. You don't understand. None of you understand. My son, his voice broke. My son was 19 years old, paralyzed in a football accident. We couldn't afford the experimental treatment. $500,000. I was a millionaire, but not that kind of millionaire. And he died. He gave up and he died. The room fell silent again, but this time it was different. This was the silence of people confronting real pain. Sterling continued, his voice ragged. And now this man wants to give away technology for free. Technology that could have saved Christopher while my boy is dead in the ground? I found myself speaking without planning to. Mr. Sterling, I know why you're doing this. He turned on me, eyes blazing. You don't know anything about me. I know you lost your son, I said quietly. Christopher, 7 years ago. I know he was paralyzed and died because you couldn't afford the treatment he needed. Sterling stared at me like I'd slapped him. How do you know that? Because I lost my father the same way. 9 years ago. Cancer. $85,000 for treatment. We had $3,000. My voice was shaking now, but I kept going. James Washington. He was 52 years old. He worked at the post office for 30 years. He raised me and my little sister by himself after our mother died, and he died in a hospital bed because we were poor. I saw Sterling's face shift, saw something crack in his armor. I understand your pain, Mr. Sterling. I understand wanting to control something, anything, so you never feel that powerless again. But stealing Mr. Tanaka's technology, making it expensive and exclusive, that doesn't honor Christopher. That creates more fathers like mine, more sons like me. You don't understand, Sterling said, but his voice had lost its fury. Now it just sounded tired, broken. If I don't control this technology, if it's just out there for anyone, then Christopher's death was for nothing. At least if I own it, if I decide who gets it, then his death mattered. Then I can say my son died so that I could make sure this never happens to anyone else. But that's not what you're doing, I said gently. You're making sure it only happens to poor people. You're making sure people like my father keep dying while rich people live. That doesn't make Christopher's death meaningful. That makes it a justification for cruelty." Mr. Tanaka stepped forward. He pulled out his wallet and extracted a photo, holding it out so everyone could see. A young Japanese man in a wheelchair, smiling at the camera, despite obvious pain in his eyes. "My son, Yuki, 32 years old, 15 years ago, car accident, spine broken, doctors say he never walk again." Mr. Tanaka's English was halting, but his meaning was crystal clear. "I have money. I am CEO. I can afford expensive treatment, expensive equipment, but I think, what about families who cannot afford? What about the father who works 3 jobs?" He looked at me. "What about the mother who chooses between medicine and food?" He turned back to Sterling. "So I make technology cheap. I make it good. Not for money. For fathers. For sons. For families who should not choose between living and eating." Mr. Tanaka held up the contract. "Mr. Sterling, you want to steal this. You want to make expensive again. This is not business. This is cruelty. Your son would not want this." Sterling's face crumpled. For a moment I thought he might actually cry, but then his expression hardened again. "You're wrong. You don't know what Christopher would have wanted. You didn't know him." "No," I said. "But I knew my father, and I know he wouldn't want me to use his death as an excuse to hurt others. He'd want me to be better than the system that killed him, to help people, not hurt them more." Another investor stood up, a black man, maybe 70 years old, in a wheelchair. "Theodore Williams. I'd seen his name on the guest list but hadn't paid much attention." "I'm going to say something," Theodore announced in a deep, commanding voice. "Y'all might not want to hear it, but I'm saying it anyway." Theodore Williams rolled his wheelchair forward, the wheels making soft sounds against the expensive carpet. Every eye in the room turned to him. He had the kind of presence that commanded attention, not through volume or aggression, but through sheer gravity of experience. "I was paralyzed in Vietnam," Theodore said, his voice steady and deep. 1972. Stepped on a landmine outside of Da Nang. I was 22 years old, came home to a country that didn't want me, to a VA system that couldn't help me, to a society that saw me as broken." He paused, looking around the room. "Any of y'all know what it's like to be black, paralyzed, and poor in 1972 America?" Nobody answered. The silence was uncomfortable, heavy. "I didn't think so," Theodore continued. "There was no wheelchair that worked for me, nothing affordable, nothing designed for a black man's body, a black man's community, a black man's income. So you know what I did? I built my own, in my garage. With spare parts and determination and anger at a system that had forgotten me." He rolled closer to the table, his eyes moving from face to face. "I started a company, made wheelchairs and mobility devices for people the medical industry didn't care about. Poor people, black people, brown people, people in wheelchairs who couldn't afford the $10,000 models. I made them for $800. Good quality, dignity included." Theodore looked at Sterling directly. "I became successful, made money, lots of it, but I never forgot what it felt like to be forgotten, to be invisible, to be told by the silence of the system that your life wasn't worth the investment." He turned his wheelchair to face Mr. Tanaka. "Sir, if you're offering technology that helps people like I was, people like this young man's father, then you have my support, not my money for this theft that was planned here tonight. My money to help you." Theodore wheeled back to Sterling. "Robert, I've known you for 15 years. I knew Christopher. That boy volunteered at children's hospitals. He coached Little League for kids with disabilities. He was kind. He was generous." His voice softened. Do you really think he'd want his death to be the reason other kids can't walk? Other fathers can't afford treatment? Other families have to choose between medical care and eating? Sterling's hands were shaking. He gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. You don't understand. If I don't control this technology, if I don't decide who gets it, then I'm powerless again. Then I'm back in that hospital room watching my son die and being able to do nothing about it. But you're not powerless, I heard myself saying. Everyone turned to look at me again, and I realized I'd stepped even closer to the table, fully into the conversation now, no longer the invisible waiter. You're one of the richest men in America, Mr. Sterling. You have resources most people can't even imagine. You could use that power to help people. Instead, you want to use it to control who lives and who dies. That's not power, that's playing God. And what would you know about power? Sterling snapped at me, but there was less venom in it now, more desperation. You're a waiter working 3 jobs. You know nothing about having the resources to make real change. You're right, I said. I don't have money. I don't have power. All I have is the truth and the courage to speak it. But that was enough tonight, wasn't it? That was enough to stop you from stealing from Mr. Tanaka. Another investor stood up. A middle-aged Asian-American woman in an elegant gray suit. I need to say something, too. Her voice was quiet but firm. My name is Patricia Chen. I'm an investor, and I was prepared to sign off on this deal tonight without reading the fine print. I trusted Robert's judgment. She looked at Sterling with something like pity. But this young man just showed me that blind trust is how injustice happens. She walked over to stand next to Mr. Tanaka. My mother died because she couldn't afford her heart medication. She was 62. She skipped doses to save money. She died in her sleep because she was trying to make her prescription last longer. Patricia's voice cracked. I became successful so I'd never be powerless like that again. So I could afford any treatment, any medication, anything. She turned to face the room. But success doesn't mean stepping on people who are still powerless. It means lifting them up. Mr. Tanaka, if you're trying to make medical technology affordable for families like mine was, then I want to help you, really help you, not steal from you. Sterling sat down heavily in his chair. He looked around the room and seemed to realize that the tide had completely turned against him. The other investors were shifting uncomfortably, avoiding his eyes. Even Jackson Moore, his loyal vice president, had stepped back from the table, distancing himself. This is insane, Sterling said, but there was no force behind it. You're going to throw away a billion-dollar opportunity because some waiter told you a sob story? It's not a sob story, Mr. Tanaka said firmly. It is the truth, and truth matters more than money. He picked up the contract, the one that Sterling had spent months preparing, the one that would have stolen everything he'd worked for, and slowly, deliberately, tore it in half. The sound of ripping paper echoed through the silent room like thunder. Chi yue hajong wari desu. The negotiation is over. He spoke in Japanese first, then repeated in English. I will not do business with people who try to steal from me, who try to use my trust against me. Who value profit over human life? Sterling's face went through a series of expressions, rage, despair, resignation. So that's it. You're just going to walk away, leave all this opportunity on the table? It is not opportunity, Mr. Tanaka said. It is trap, and this young man saved me from it. He turned to me, and I was struck again by how much he reminded me of my grandfather. The same dignity, the same quiet strength. Anatano Minkan ha? What is your name? Marcus Washington, sir, I said in English, then added in Japanese, Ma kasu Washington des. Marcus Washington, Mr. Tanaka repeated carefully, getting the pronunciation right. You lose your job tonight, yes? My stomach dropped. I'd been so focused on stopping the theft that I'd pushed aside the inevitable consequences, but he was right. Elena was standing by the door, her face a mask of professional neutrality, but I could see the apology in her eyes. The hotel would have no choice but to fire me. And once word got out, and it would get out because Sterling had connections everywhere, I'd be blacklisted across Chicago's service industry. "Yes, sir," I said quietly. "I think so." Mr. Tanaka reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card holder made of beautiful lacquered wood with mother-of-pearl inlay. He selected a card and held it out to me with both hands in the traditional Japanese manner. "Then you work for me," he said simply. I stared at the card, not taking it yet. "Sir, I don't understand. You have language, you have heart, you have courage, you understand what it means to lose someone because of money. You understand who we are trying to help." Mr. Tanaka pressed the card into my hands. "I need Director of American Operations, someone who speaks Japanese, someone who understands American culture, someone who will not betray me for money." I looked down at the card. Hiroshi Tanaka, CEO, Tanaka Medical Technologies. There was a phone number, an email address, an office in Tokyo. "Mr. Tanaka, I don't have a college degree. I dropped out when my father got sick. I'm just a waiter. I don't know anything about running operations for an international company." "You know the most important thing," Mr. Tanaka said. "You know right from wrong. You know when to be silent and when to speak. These cannot be taught in university." Theodore Williams rolled forward again. "Son, let me tell you something. I've been in business for 40 years. I've seen hundreds of college graduates with fancy degrees and empty souls. What you did tonight, that takes more than education. That takes character." Patricia Chen nodded. "I agree. Mr. Tanaka, if you hire Marcus, I'd like to invest in your American expansion. Real investment, real partnership. Not the fraud that was planned here tonight." "I'm in too," Theodore said. $5 million. Let's build something that actually helps people." Another investor, the older white man with silver hair, stood up slowly. "My name is Daniel Freeman. I've been silent tonight because I'm ashamed. I almost went along with this without asking questions. I almost helped steal from a good man because Robert was my friend and I trusted him." He looked at Sterling, then at Mr. Tanaka. "I'd like to make amends. I'm in $3 million. Sterling was watching this unfold with an expression of complete disbelief. His grand plan was falling apart, and more than that, it was transforming into something else entirely, something better, something that explicitly rejected everything he'd tried to do. "This is ridiculous," he said, but his voice was hollow. "You're all making a mistake. Medical technology costs money to develop, to manufacture, to distribute. You can't just give it away and expect to survive as a business." "We are not giving it away," Mr. Tanaka corrected him. "We are making it affordable. There is difference. People will pay. Just not so much that they must choose between medicine and food, between wheelchair and rent, between living and eating." He turned back to me. "Marcus Washington, will you help me? Salary is $120,000 per year. Health insurance for you and your sister, housing allowance, education fund for your sister's university." I couldn't breathe. $120,000. That was more money than I'd made in the last 4 years combined. That was Keisha's college tuition covered. That was never having to choose between electricity and groceries again, but more than that, it was purpose. It was using my father's death to prevent other deaths. It was honoring the promise I'd made. "I accept," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Mr. Tanaka. I accept." Mr. Tanaka smiled, a genuine, warm smile that transformed his entire face. He bowed to me again, and I bowed back, and for a moment the expensive dining room full of millionaires and billionaires faded away. It was just two people who understood loss, who understood purpose, acknowledging each other with respect. Then Elena's voice cut through the moment. "Marcus, I need you to come with me. Now." I turned to see her standing rigid by the door, her face professionally blank. Behind her stood 2 security guards in the hotel's navy blue uniforms. My heart sank. Of course, I'd disrupted a VIP event. I'd interfered with guests. The hotel had policies. "Ms. Rodriguez," Mr. Tanaka said, stepping forward. "This young man did nothing wrong. He saved me from being robbed. He should be rewarded, not punished." Elena's professional mask cracked slightly, showing the conflict underneath. "Mr. Tanaka, I understand, and personally I agree with you, but hotel policy is very clear. Employees are not permitted to interrupt or participate in guest events. Corporate has already been informed. The decision is out of my hands." Sterling, who had been sitting in stunned silence, suddenly came alive again. His face twisted with something ugly. "That's right. He disrupted a private business meeting. He made inappropriate accusations. He overstepped every boundary. I want him arrested for harassment and interference." "Robert," Theodore Williams said sharply. "Stop. Just stop." "No!" Sterling stood up, knocking his chair backward. "No, I won't stop. You all want to play the moral high ground? Fine. But there are consequences for what this waiter did. He violated his employment contract. He violated hotel policy. He violated every professional standard, and I'm going to make sure he pays for it." Patricia Chen stood up too, her voice icy. "Robert, you're making this worse. You tried to commit fraud tonight, corporate espionage, patent theft, and you're threatening the one person who had the courage to stop it." "I'm exercising my rights as a guest who was harassed by hotel staff," Sterling shot back. "Elena, I want him removed from the premises immediately, and I want a formal complaint filed. If you don't handle this properly, I'll be speaking to your corporate office about your management of this situation." The threat was clear. Elena's job was on the line too. She closed her eyes briefly, and when she opened them I could see she'd made her decision. The decision she had to make. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I'm sorry. I have to let you go. Effective immediately. Please surrender your name tag and come with security." My hands shook as I unpinned the name tag from my vest. Marcus Washington. 3 years I'd worn that tag. 3 years of being invisible, of being professional, of swallowing my pride and my anger and my exhaustion to serve people who looked through me like I was furniture. I held the name tag out to Elena. "I understand," I said. "Thank you for giving me a chance here. You were always fair to me." Elena took the name tag and I saw tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "What you did was brave. You should know that." As the security guards moved toward me, Mr. Tanaka stepped between us. "Wait. Marcus Washington is now an employee of Tanaka Medical Technologies. He is under my protection. If you remove him from this hotel by force, I will consider it an assault on my staff, and I will take legal action against this hotel." One of the security guards looked uncertain. "Sir, hotel policy is less important than doing what is right," Mr. Tanaka said firmly. "Call your manager. Call your corporate office. Tell them Hiroshi Tanaka, CEO of a company worth $800 million, is threatening to pull all future business from this hotel if they proceed with this termination." Theodore Williams spoke up. "Tell them Theodore Williams, CEO of Williams Mobility Solutions, is making the same threat. My company books 300 room nights a year at Drake Hotels nationwide." Patricia Chen added, "Patricia Chen, Chen Capital Management. We host 4 corporate events per year at Drake Properties. Not anymore if you fire this young man for doing the right thing." Daniel Freeman stood slowly. "Daniel Freeman, Freeman Investments. Same. You fire him, you lose my business. Elena looked completely overwhelmed. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I need to call my regional manager. This is beyond my authority to handle. While she stepped into the hallway to make the call, Sterling turned on the other investors with rage in his eyes. You're all insane. You're throwing away business relationships over a waiter who doesn't know his place? His place? Theodore's voice dropped to a dangerous register. Boy, let me tell you something. I'm 70 years old. I've been dealing with men like you my whole life. Men who think other people have places. That young man's place is anywhere he has the courage to stand. And tonight, he stood for what was right. Where were you standing, Robert? Sterling's face went red. My son is dead. My son is in the ground. And you're all acting like I'm the villain here? You're not the villain, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me again. You're not evil, Mr. Sterling. You're hurt. You're so hurt that it's turned into something toxic. But hurt people. And tonight you were going to hurt Mr. Tanaka, and through him you were going to hurt thousands of families who need affordable medical equipment. That's not honoring your son. That's spreading your pain to innocent people. Sterling stared at me, and for the first time since I'd seen him, the anger drained from his face, leaving only exhaustion and grief. Then what am I supposed to do? His voice cracked. Tell me. What am I supposed to do with all this anger, all this guilt? I couldn't save Christopher. I had money, but not enough money. And by the time I had enough money, he was already dead. So tell me, what am I supposed to do with that? Before I could answer, Elena returned, her phone still in her hand, looking dazed. Corporate wants to speak with Mr. Tanaka directly. They're requesting a video call. Mr. Tanaka took the phone. The conversation was brief, conducted in English for everyone to hear. The corporate executive on the other end was professional but clearly concerned about the major clients threatening to pull their business. After 5 minutes of discussion, Mr. Tanaka handed the phone back to Elena. She listened for a moment, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Marcus, corporate has made a decision. You're not being fired, you're being promoted to guest relations manager, full-time position, salary $65,000 per year, benefits included. They want to make clear that the hotel supports employees who demonstrate integrity and protect guest interests. I stood there, stunned. 5 minutes ago, I was being escorted out by security. Now I was being promoted. Sterling exploded. This is insane! He disrupted my meeting. He cost me $1 billion deal, and you're promoting him? Elena's voice was steady now, backed by corporate authority. Mr. Sterling, upon review, corporate has determined that Marcus prevented a situation that could have resulted in international legal action against a guest in our hotel. He protected Mr. Tanaka's interests, which protects the hotel's reputation. That's exactly what we expect from our employees. She turned to me. Marcus, this promotion comes with a condition. You'll need to develop a training program for all hotel staff on cultural sensitivity and ethical conduct in guest services. Corporate wants to implement it system-wide across all Drake properties. I couldn't speak, couldn't process what was happening. In the span of 30 minutes, I'd gone from invisible waiter to fired employee to promoted manager to job offer from an international CEO. My head was spinning. Mr. Tanaka smiled. Marcus Washington, now you have 2 job offers. You must choose. Actually, Theodore Williams interjected, I'd like to make it 3. Young man, if you're interested, Williams Mobility Solutions could use someone with your language skills and your integrity. Director of International Relations, $75,000 per year. Patricia Chen laughed. 4 job offers. Chen Capital Management. We need people who can spot fraud when they see it. Analyst position, $80,000. I looked around the room at these successful people, these powerful people, all offering me opportunities I'd never dreamed possible. Just this morning, I'd been counting out $47 in tips, wondering how I'd make rent. Now I had more job offers than I could process. But I knew which one I wanted, which one mattered. "Mr. Tanaka," I said, turning to face him, "I accept your offer, if you'll still have me." "Of course," he said, bowing slightly. "We will do great work together. Work that honors your father. Work that honors my son. Work that helps people who need help." Sterling made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. He slumped back into his chair, looking 10 years older than he had an hour ago. "So that's it. I lose everything. My deal, my reputation, my revenge." He looked up at the ceiling. "Christopher, I'm sorry. I failed you again." I looked at Sterling sitting there broken and defeated, and something shifted in my chest. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad. This man had lost his son, just like I'd lost my father. Pain like that doesn't just go away. It festers. It transforms. And if you're not careful, it turns you into something you never meant to be. I walked over to Sterling's chair and did something that surprised everyone in the room, including myself. I knelt down beside him, bringing myself to his eye level. "Mr. Sterling," I said quietly, "you didn't fail Christopher tonight." He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "What?" "You didn't fail him. You almost did. But you didn't. Because you can still choose differently right now. Tonight." "It's too late," Sterling said, his voice hollow. "The deal is dead. Tanaka will never work with me. Everyone in this room now knows I tried to commit fraud. My reputation is destroyed. Your reputation as a thief is destroyed," I said, "but you can build a different reputation. You can still honor Christopher, just not the way you were planning." Sterling stared at me. "What are you talking about?" I sat back on my heels, gathering my thoughts. "You said Christopher volunteered at children's hospitals, that he coached kids with disabilities. He sounds like he was a good person, a person who cared about helping others." "He was," Sterling whispered. "He was the best of us." "Then don't honor him by becoming the worst of us," I said. "Don't honor him by locking away technology that could help other kids like him. Honor him by making sure no other father has to watch his son give up hope. No other son has to watch his father die because money matters more than life." "How?" Sterling's voice was barely audible. "How do I do that? I've spent 7 years building a company designed to maximize profit from medical technology. I've made it my mission to control who gets access to life-saving equipment. How do I just change that?" Mr. Tanaka, who had been standing quietly nearby, stepped forward. "You do not change alone. You change with help." Sterling looked up at him, confused. "Why would you help me? I tried to steal from you." "Because," Mr. Tanaka said, settling into the chair next to Sterling, "I understand loss. My son Yuki was 17 when the accident happened. 17? He had his whole life ahead of him. Dreams of being an engineer. Dreams of traveling the world. In one moment, all those dreams changed." He pulled out the photo of Yuki again, looking at it with such tenderness that I felt my throat tighten. For months, I was angry. Angry at the drunk driver. Angry at fate. Angry at God. I wanted revenge. I wanted someone to hurt the way I was hurting. Mr. Tanaka looked at Sterling directly. "But Yuki taught me something." One day in his wheelchair he said to me, "Father, you can spend your life angry at what I lost, or you can spend your life helping me find what I still have." That day changed everything for me. He put the photo back in his wallet. I decided to use my skills as an engineer to help my son and others like him. Not for profit, not for revenge, for purpose. And you know what I discovered? Purpose heals better than revenge ever could. Sterling was silent for a long moment, then quietly, "I don't know if I can do that. Let go of the anger." "You don't have to let go all at once," Theodore Williams said, rolling his wheelchair closer. "Robert, I've known you for 15 years. You're not a bad man. You're a grieving father who made bad choices because the pain was too much to carry alone." He placed a weathered hand on Sterling's shoulder. "The question isn't whether you can let go of all the anger right now. The question is, can you take one step toward something better? Can you make one different choice?" Patricia Chen spoke up from across the table. "Robert, my mother died because she couldn't afford her medication. For years, I was angry at the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, the whole system. I made money, so I'd never be powerless again. But making money didn't heal the wound. Helping others did." She walked over and stood with the growing circle around Sterling. "Work with Mr. Tanaka. Use your business expertise, your manufacturing capabilities, your distribution network. Use all of it to help make medical technology affordable. Turn Sterling Biomedical into something Christopher would have been proud of." Daniel Freeman added his voice. "I lost my wife to Alzheimer's 3 years ago. Watching her fade away day by day was the hardest thing I've ever done. And when she was gone, I was furious at the world for taking her. But you know what? That anger didn't bring her back. It just made me lonely and bitter. It wasn't until I started volunteering with Alzheimer's support groups, helping other families, that I started to heal." Sterling looked around at all these successful people, all these people who had also known loss, all of them offering him something he hadn't expected: understanding. Not approval of what he'd tried to do, but understanding of why he'd tried to do it. "I don't deserve this," Sterling said finally. "I don't deserve your forgiveness or your help. I tried to steal from you, Hiroshi. I manipulated the translator. I planned it for months. I don't deserve a second chance." "Perhaps not," Mr. Tanaka said gently. "But Christopher deserves for you to be better than this, and all the other Christophers out there, all the young people who need medical equipment they cannot afford, they deserve for you to be better than this too." I found myself speaking again. "Mr. Sterling, my father told me something the night before he died. He said, 'Marcus, don't let anger make you small. Be bigger than the hate.' I didn't really understand what he meant at the time. I was too angry at the hospital, at the insurance company, at God, at everyone." I stood up, my knees creaking from kneeling on the floor. "But over the years, working 3 jobs to take care of Keisha, I started to understand. Being bigger than the hate doesn't mean pretending you're not hurt. It means choosing not to let that hurt poison everything else. It means using your pain to prevent other people's pain." Sterling looked at me with something like wonder. "You're 28 years old. You've been working yourself to death to take care of your sister. You should be angry at the world. You should be bitter." "I am angry," I admitted. "I'm angry that my father died because we were poor. I'm angry that Keisha grew up without a father. I'm angry that I had to give up college, give up my dreams, give up everything to survive. I'm angry every single day." I paused, feeling the weight of that anger, acknowledging it fully for the first time in years. "But I'm also my father's son. And he taught me that anger is like a fire. You can let it consume you and everything around you. Or you can use it to forge something new, something better." Sterling's hands were shaking. He clasped them together to still them, but I could see tears starting to form in his eyes. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to do what you're suggesting, to transform my company, to work with Hiroshi after what I tried to do. to honor Christopher by helping the people I've spent years exploiting. You don't have to be strong enough today, Mr. Tanaka said. You just have to be willing to try. We will help you. Marcus will help you. All of us will help you. But you must make the choice. You must take the first step. The room fell silent. Everyone was watching Sterling, waiting for his decision. This was the moment everything would either change or calcify forever. This was the moment he would choose revenge or redemption. Sterling closed his eyes. I watched his jaw work, watched him struggle with something internal and enormous. When he opened his eyes, they were swimming with tears, but there was something else there too, something like hope, something like possibility. "Okay," he said, his voice cracking. "Okay. Tell me what I need to do." Mr. Tanaka smiled. "First, we must apologize to each other, properly. In both our cultures, apology is the beginning of healing." He stood and bowed deeply to Sterling. "I am sorry for your loss. I am sorry your son Christopher died. I am sorry you have carried this pain alone for so long." Sterling looked startled by the formal apology. Then, slowly, awkwardly, he stood and attempted to bow back. It was clumsy. He didn't know the proper form, but the intention was clear. "I'm sorry I tried to steal from you. I'm sorry I let my grief turn me into someone my son wouldn't recognize. I'm sorry for all the people I've hurt with my business practices over the last 7 years." "Apology accepted," Mr. Tanaka said. "Now, we begin new partnership, real partnership, built on trust, transparency, respect." Theodore Williams rolled forward. "I have a suggestion. Robert, you restructure Sterling Biomedical with a new mission: affordable medical technology for underserved communities. You handle manufacturing and distribution in America. Hiroshi handles innovation and design. The rest of us invest and provide oversight." Patricia Chen nodded enthusiastically. "And we create a foundation, the Christopher Sterling Memorial Foundation, dedicated to providing free or low-cost medical equipment to families who can't afford it. We fund it with a percentage of profits from the new partnership." Daniel Freeman added, "We start here in Chicago, open a clinic in an underserved neighborhood, provide free prosthetics, wheelchairs, mobility devices, then expand to other cities: Detroit, Atlanta, Oakland, Houston, cities where people need help the most." Sterling listened to all of this, and slowly, something in his face began to change. The hardness, the bitterness, the rage that had been etched into every line, it started to soften. He looked younger suddenly, or maybe just less tired, less heavy with the weight of his own hatred. "The Christopher Sterling Memorial Foundation," he repeated quietly. He would have liked that. He always wanted to help people. A tear rolled down his cheek. "God, I miss him. I miss him so much." Word count, 2050 words. "I know you do," Mr. Tanaka said softly. "I know. But now we honor him. We make his name mean something beautiful instead of something painful." Sterling wiped his face with the back of his hand, not caring anymore about the corporate facade, the billionaire armor. He was just a father who missed his son. "When do we start?" "Tonight," Mr. Tanaka said. "Tonight we start. We make new contract. Real contract. Fair contract." He turned to Jackson Moore, who had been standing frozen near the wall throughout this entire exchange. "You, Mr. Moore, you have computer?" Moore nodded nervously. "Yes, sir. In my briefcase." "Good. We write new contract now. Together. All of us see. No secrets, no hidden clauses. Everything transparent." For the next 3 hours, we sat around that table in the presidential suite and hammered out a real partnership agreement. Not a theft disguised as collaboration, but an actual framework for working together. Sterling brought expertise in American manufacturing and distribution. Mr. Tanaka brought technological innovation and design philosophy. Theodore contributed his decades of experience in affordable mobility solutions. Patricia offered financial backing and business strategy. Daniel provided connections to medical institutions and philanthropic networks. And me? I translated. I moved between English and Japanese, making sure both sides understood every word, every nuance, every intention. Kim, the original translator, had left shortly after his betrayal was exposed, escorted out by hotel security. Now it was just me, making sure that language would never again be a weapon used to deceive. By midnight, we had the basic framework. A true 50-50 partnership between Sterling Biomedical and Tanaka Medical Technologies, with a new American subsidiary called Sterling Tanaka Medical Initiative. 20% of all profits would go to the Christopher Sterling Memorial Foundation, which would provide free or reduced-cost medical equipment to families earning below a certain income threshold. The pricing structure was revolutionary for the American medical equipment industry. A basic wheelchair that typically sold for $15,000 would be available for $1,200. An advanced prosthetic that cost $50,000 would be available for $5,000. Not free. Mr. Tanaka believed in the dignity of people paying what they could, but affordable, accessible, humane. "This will bankrupt us," Jackson Moore said at one point, his voice tight with concern. "The profit margins are too thin. We can't sustain this." "We can't sustain it with your current overhead," Patricia corrected him sharply. "Executive salaries will need to be restructured, marketing budgets reduced, fancy offices downsized." "But it's absolutely sustainable if you're willing to prioritize people over profit margins." Sterling looked at Moore, then at the contract. "Do it. Cut executive compensation by 30% across the board, starting with mine. I have more money than I'll ever spend. Christopher didn't need a father with a bigger yacht. He needed a father with a bigger heart." By 1 in the morning, the contract was complete. Everyone signed. Not the fraudulent contract Sterling had prepared, but this new one, written in real time, with real partnership, with real purpose. As Mr. Tanaka and Sterling shook hands over the signed documents, I saw something I hadn't expected to see. Both men were crying. "Thank you," Sterling said to Mr. Tanaka. "Thank you for giving me a chance to be better than I was." "Thank you for taking it," Mr. Tanaka replied. "Now we honor our sons. Together." Elena, who had stayed throughout the entire evening despite her shift officially ending hours ago, approached me as people began gathering their things. "Marcus, I need to apologize. I should have stood up for you immediately when Sterling threatened you. I should have trusted that you were doing the right thing." "You were protecting your job," I said. "I understand. You have responsibilities too." "That's not an excuse," she said firmly. "You risked everything to do the right thing. The least I could have done was support you. I'm sorry." I nodded, accepting her apology. "Thank you. That means a lot." She smiled, tired but genuine. "You start your new position on Monday, guest relations manager, and honestly, you're probably overqualified at this point. After what you did tonight, you could run the whole hotel." I laughed, feeling giddy with exhaustion and relief and the surreal nature of everything that had happened. "Let's start with guest relations and see how it goes." But even as I said it, I knew I wouldn't be taking that position. The job with Mr. Tanaka, Director of American Operations for Tanaka Medical Technologies, that was the path I needed to take. That was the work that would honor my father. That was the promise fulfilled. As the meeting finally broke up, Mr. Tanaka pulled me aside. "Marcus, you have made job offer from hotel." "Very good offer. If you prefer to stay here, I understand." I shook my head. Mr. Tanaka, I want to work with you. I want to help build what we talked about tonight. I want to make sure families like mine can afford medical care. That's the work I'm meant to do." He smiled, that warm, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. "Then we begin. But first, you must rest. You work 3 jobs today, yes? You are exhausted." He was right. I was so tired I could barely stand. My feet ached, my back hurt. My mind was foggy with exhaustion. But I also felt more alive than I had in years. "Come to my hotel tomorrow, today, at 2 o'clock in afternoon," Mr. Tanaka said. "We have much to discuss. Your salary, your responsibilities, when you can start. But first, you sleep. You spend time with your sister. You tell her the good news. Keisha." God, I hadn't even thought about Keisha in hours. She'd be asleep now in our tiny apartment, having no idea that her brother's entire life had just changed, that her life had just changed. "Mr. Tanaka," I said, "my sister Keisha. She's 17. She wants to be a doctor. She's brilliant, straight A's, top of her class. But I don't know how we're going to afford college. The scholarships will help, but—" Mr. Tanaka held up a hand to stop me. "Your sister's education is covered. Full scholarship through Tanaka Medical Technologies Education Fund, university, medical school, everything. She will be doctor. And someday she will help design medical equipment for doctors to use. Full circle." I couldn't speak. I just stood there, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what this man was offering. Not just a job, not just money, but a future, for me and for Keisha. The future my father had wanted for us. "Why?" I finally managed to ask. "Why are you doing all this for me?" Mr. Tanaka placed a hand on my shoulder. "Because you did something for me that cannot be repaid. You saved me from being robbed, yes. But more than that, you reminded me why I do this work. You reminded me that courage still exists, that honor still matters, that one person speaking truth can change everything." He squeezed my shoulder gently. "And because your father would be very proud of you, just as I hope my son is proud of me. We work to honor them. We work to make the world they left better than we found it." I left the Drake Hotel at 2:30 in the morning. The November air was cold against my face as I walked to the bus stop. I'd walked this route hundreds of times, bone-tired after long shifts, wondering how I'd make it through another day. But tonight was different. Tonight I walked with purpose, with hope, with a future opening up before me like a sunrise. The bus was nearly empty at this hour. Just me, a tired nurse in scrubs, and an older man who might have been homeless. I sat by the window and watched Chicago pass by, the city I'd lived in my whole life, the city that had chewed me up and spit me out 1,000 times. It looked different tonight, like possibility instead of prison. I got off at my stop on the south side and walked the 3 blocks to our apartment building. The streetlights were dim, and I could hear sirens in the distance, the familiar soundtrack of my neighborhood. Our building was 40 years old, 4 stories, walls that needed paint and steps that creaked. Home. I climbed to the 3rd floor and unlocked our apartment door as quietly as possible. It was nearly 3 in the morning. Keisha would be asleep. But as I stepped inside, I saw the light on in the kitchen. Keisha was sitting at our small table, textbook spread out around her, still studying despite the hour. She looked up when I came in, and her face registered surprise. "Marcus, I thought you'd be home hours ago." I was starting to worry. Then she saw my face, and her expression changed to concern. "What happened? Are you okay?" I sat down across from her, suddenly feeling every minute of this impossibly long day. "Keisha, something happened tonight. Something big." Fear flashed across her face. "Did you get fired?" "Oh God, Marcus, tell me you didn't lose one of your jobs. Let me tell you the whole story," I said. And I did. I told her everything. About the dinner, about Mr. Tanaka, about Sterling's plan to steal the patents, about the moment I decided to speak up despite knowing it would cost me everything, about the contract being torn up and rewritten, about the job offers, about Mr. Tanaka's offer of $120,000 a year and full health insurance and housing allowance. Keisha listened with her mouth open, her eyes growing wider with each detail. "And then," I said, my voice catching, "Mr. Tanaka said your education is covered. Full scholarship, university and medical school, everything." Keisha's hands flew to her mouth. Tears started streaming down her face. "What? Marcus, what? That's not real. That can't be real." "It's real," I said, starting to cry myself. "It's real, Keisha. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to have the future Dad wanted for you. No debt, no working 3 jobs, just school, just learning, just becoming the brilliant doctor you're meant to be." She launched herself around the table and threw her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. We held each other and cried. 9 years of exhaustion and fear and struggling and hoping all coming out at once. I cried for my father who didn't live to see this moment. I cried for the boy I'd been at 19, giving up college to take care of his family. I cried for every early morning shift, every aching muscle, every moment I'd felt invisible and powerless and trapped, but I also cried with relief, with gratitude, with joy. "We did it," Keisha whispered against my shoulder. "We kept the promise to Dad. We did it." "You did it," I corrected her. "You worked so hard. You never gave up. You earned every bit of this." She pulled back to look at me, her face wet with tears but smiling through them. "We did it together. You sacrificed everything for me, Marcus. Everything. And I'm never going to forget that." We sat there at our scratched kitchen table, in our tiny apartment with the leaky faucet and the crack in the ceiling, and for the first time in 9 years I felt like we were going to be okay. More than okay. We were going to thrive. "I need to call Pastor Mitchell," I said suddenly. "And Elena. And I need to meet with Mr. Tanaka tomorrow at 2. And I need to give notice at McDonald's and Walmart. And we need to start looking at colleges for you. And," Keisha laughed, wiping her eyes, "Marcus, it's 3 in the morning. All of that can wait until tomorrow. Right now you need to sleep. You've been awake for 21 hours. She was right. I was so exhausted I was starting to feel dizzy. But I was also too wired to sleep, too full of adrenaline and emotion and the sheer impossible reality of what had happened. "Come on," Keisha said, pulling me to my feet. "I'll make you some tea. We'll sit for a little while. And you can tell me more about Mr. Tanaka and what the job will be like." Word count, 200 words. And so we sat together, my sister and I, at that old kitchen table where our father had once sat, drinking tea and talking about the future. Not a future of struggle and sacrifice, but a future of purpose and possibility. I thought about what my father had told me the night before he died, about being bigger than the hate, about how your worth is defined by how you see others when no one is watching. He'd given me more than words that night. He'd given me a compass, a way to navigate through pain toward something meaningful. Tonight, I'd honored that compass. I'd spoken up when I could have stayed silent. I'd risked everything when I could have played it safe. And somehow, impossibly, it had led to this moment, sitting with my sister, both of us crying and laughing, knowing that we'd kept our promise, that we'd taken care of each other, that we'd survived. As the first light of dawn began filtering through our kitchen window, I felt my father's presence with us. Not in some mystical way, but in the choices we'd made, the courage we'd found, the love we'd protected. We'd honored him. And that was everything. Have you ever had to choose between doing what's right and protecting what's safe? What gave you the courage to speak up when it mattered most? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.